You're not exhausted because life is hard. You're exhausted because you are accessible, because somewhere along the way, you became the man who answers, the man who helps, the man who makes it work, and the world rewarded you for it at first. A little praise, a little appreciation, the quiet relief of being needed. Then the price increased. Now it's constant. A message that starts with a quick question, a call that pretends to be casual but already expects your time, a request wrapped in familiarity, delivered like a right. And if you hesitate, the tone changes. Not overtly, just enough to make you feel it. Disappointment, pressure, that small surgical, come on, and your body moves before your mind decides. You start explaining, you start justifying, you start softening your boundary as if your boundary is an offense that requires a defense. Because you've been trained to treat refusal like a moral failure. That is the trap. Modern men are taught that being good means being reachable, that maturity means being agreeable, that love means compliance. They call it responsibility while it quietly deletes their standards, one favor at a time. And when you finally try to say no, it isn't logic that stops you. It's guilt, that tightness in the chest, the reflex to repair the mood, the fear that someone will label you selfish, cold, ungrateful. Guilt doesn't need a threat. It only needs one belief installed deep enough to run automatically. If I refuse, I'm a bad person. Once that belief is in you, anyone can pull the lever, sometimes intentionally, often without even realizing what they're doing, because pressure has worked before, and what works gets repeated. This is what we dismantle. In the next 7 chapters, you'll learn the unavailable protocol, how to refuse without guilt, how to shut down the 3 pushback types, and the exact lines that end negotiation without starting war. Stay until the end, because Chapter 7 is where your no gets tested when calm refusal isn't respected, and you need to become unmovable. Let's begin. Most men think guilt is a moral alarm. They feel it, and they assume it means they've done something wrong. That assumption is why guilt controls them so easily, because guilt doesn't always come from wrongdoing. Very often, it comes from disobedience. It's the discomfort of breaking a role you were rewarded for playing, the reliable one, the agreeable one, the man who absorbs inconvenience so everyone else can stay comfortable. The world doesn't need to threaten that man. It only needs to imply disapproval. And once people learn you fear disapproval, they don't need authority over you. They just need the right sentence, said with the right tone. Watch how the trap is set. They don't argue the request. They redefine your refusal. Come on, it would mean a lot. After everything I've done, don't be like that. I thought you were different. Those aren't reasons, they're frames. They attach your no to your identity, so now you're not deciding whether you have time. You're defending whether you're a good man. That's where you start bargaining with your standards. You explain too much, you apologize too early, you offer next time as a bribe, you soften the refusal until it becomes a delayed yes. You think you're being considerate. What you're actually doing is training them. A paragraph is a handle. A reason is a lever. An apology is a down payment. Then you wonder why the same people return with bigger demands. Because the first time, you paid. Here's the correction. Guilt is not proof. Guilt is a signal. A signal you're stepping out of an old contract where your value was measured by how easy you were to access. So the first move of the unavailable protocol is not to eliminate guilt. It's to stop obeying it. Treat guilt like weather. Notice it, breathe, keep your direction, and enforce one clean line. I'm not available. Say it once, then stop. Silence is the wall, and what happens next will reveal whether they were asking or taking. There are 2 ways to say no. One sounds like you're asking permission to have a boundary. The other sounds like a law of nature. Most men live in the first. They refuse with nervous energy. They oversmile. They soften their voice like they're handling explosives. And before the other person even reacts, they start paying a tax. Explanations, apologies, compensation. They call it being polite. What it really is surrendering the frame, because the frame decides who has power. It's the invisible rule beneath the words. And if your frame is, I must be liked, then your no will always arrive as a weak petition. The unavailable frame is different. Availability is earned, not because you're important, because your time is finite, and what people access consistently, they stop respecting. Free access doesn't produce closeness, it produces entitlement. Being always available tells people 3 things without you saying a word. You have no protected priorities. Your life can be interrupted without consequence. Pressure works, so stop speaking from weakness disguised as kindness. Speak from reality. The unavailable protocol runs on 3 traits: calm, brevity, finality. Calm, so your refusal can't be reframed as emotional or unstable. Brevity, because every extra sentence becomes material. People don't need your reasons to respect you. They need your consistency. Finality, because a soft no is a delayed yes, and humans lean on doors that look like they might open. So you install the second refusal line. That doesn't work for me. Not I can't, not I'm not sure, not maybe another time, because I can't invites them to solve your problem. They'll try to move the time, shrink the request, offer help, anything to find an opening. That doesn't work for me, closes the opening. It says this isn't logistics, it's a decision, and delivery matters more than words. Normal face, normal tone, no defensive laughter, no tension performance. Boring, because boring is expensive to manipulate. Manipulators need heat and urgency so they can steer your nervous system. When you stay calm and dull, they lose the steering wheel. Most men don't lose boundaries to force. They lose them to performance. Trying to look good while refusing, trying to be understood, trying to keep others comfortable. But comfort is where you get bought. Choose the small discomfort of a clean refusal now, or pay the slow resentment of a yes you didn't mean later. And when your no stops sounding like a plea, you'll meet the real opponent. Not their request, but their reaction. That's why Chapter 3 matters. Power isn't your wording. It's your ability to stop talking. The longer you talk, the weaker you become. Not because speaking is bad, because speaking creates material, and material gets used. A paragraph is a handle, a reason is a lever, a justification is an invitation. Most men don't fail because they can't say no. They fail because they can't stop talking after they say it. They deliver the refusal, and then they panic. They feel the silence, the mood shift, the imagined judgment. The old survival program wakes up, repair the tension, restore approval, remove risk. So they add more, they explain, they apologize, they over-clarify. They start bargaining with their own boundary. And the moment you do that, your no stops being a decision and becomes a discussion. That's why the unavailable protocol gives you a hard limit. 3 lines, no more. Line 1 is the decision. Line 2 is an option, only if you genuinely want to offer one. Line 3 closes the interaction. No, I'm not available. I can do Friday, not today. Optional. That's my answer. 3 lines creates a wall that doesn't invite debate. It's clean, it doesn't perform, it doesn't negotiate, it doesn't beg to be liked. Now here's where men collapse. After the 3rd line, their nervous system begs for a 4th. It whispers, give context, soften it, make sure they don't get upset. So they leak. I've got a lot going on. I'm really tired. I don't want you to be mad. I feel bad, but that 4th line feels kind. It isn't. It's a confession of where to press. People who respect you don't need your reasons. People who want to move you will use reasons as a map. Tired becomes, you'll be fine. Busy becomes, just do it later. Guilt becomes, so you admit it's unfair. So the rule is simple. Never add a 4th line. If you feel the urge, stop, breathe, hold the silence. In power dynamics, silence isn't awkward. Silence is the wall. It forces them to carry their own discomfort instead of handing it to you. And when you stop talking, you learn something valuable. Some people accept your boundary, others repeat the request, ask why, or escalate. Good. Your 3-line refusal isn't just a boundary, it's a filter. It separates those who respect decisions from those who require you pliable. And once you can hold silence, you stop being pulled by urgency, because urgency usually sneaks in through the 4th line. That's why the next chapter is the weapon that breaks pressure at the root: delay. Pressure is a time attack. It doesn't win by being logical, it wins by being fast, because the faster you answer, the less you think, and the more you default to the version of yourself trained to keep peace at any cost. That's why requests arrive wearing urgency. Quick favor. Real fast. I just need 2 minutes. I need an answer right now. Are you in or not? 2 minutes is how people smuggle in ownership. Because once you commit under pressure, your commitment becomes a weapon. If you back out later, they'll say you promised. If you reconsider, they'll call you inconsistent. If you hesitate, they'll frame you as unreliable. They don't just want a yes, they want a yes you can't escape. Not because the favor matters, but because your compliance proves access. So, the unavailable protocol gives you the move that breaks manipulation at the root. Delay. Delay is not avoidance. Delay is a tax. It forces the other person to operate without control over your tempo, and when someone can't control your tempo, they reveal who they are. Your line is policy. I don't make decisions under pressure. Say it calmly. No accusation, no emotion. Policy has no debate. If the request is healthy, delay will be respected. If it's control, delay will be punished. They'll guilt you, act wounded, escalate urgency, turn time into a moral issue. Good. That reaction is information. Now you're not arguing about the favor, you're watching how they behave when they don't get immediate access to you. Install this into your body. Delay before display. 1 breath before you speak. 10 minutes before you reply. 1 night before you commit. Immediate answers are rarely honest. They're reflex. Social survival. The old you, rushing to prevent friction. Delay gives you something most men never protect. A decision window. Inside that window, ask 1 question. Do I want this, or am I avoiding discomfort? If it's discomfort, you already know the cost. You'll pay it again and again. Expect resistance. Delay creates uncertainty, and people hate uncertainty. They'll try to close your window. Just tell me. Stop overthinking. It's simple. That's the tell. Respectful people respect your pace. People who need you pliable demand immediacy. Hold your tempo, and if they keep pushing, I'll get back to you. No details, no timeline they can negotiate, just control of the interaction. Because the man who controls tempo controls the room. And once your delay works, the next move is predictable. Pushback. After you say no, people don't just respond. They reveal. Because your refusal removes a comfort they were using. And when comfort disappears, motives surface. This is where most men lose the plot. They listen to the words and forget to watch the style. They get hypnotized by tone. They get dragged into defending themselves. They start arguing the content of the request instead of recognizing the real event. Your access just got challenged. So you need a map. Not for everyone, for the predictable few who can't tolerate your spine. There are 3 pushback types. Learn them once, and you stop being surprised. The pleader, the dominator, the negotiator. They look different, but they all want the same thing, to reopen the door you just closed. The pleader uses emotion. They don't attack you, they collapse. Wow, okay. I guess I'll do it alone. It would have meant a lot. Forget it. It sounds soft. Sometimes it even is genuine, but the mechanism is identical either way. They want you to rescue the mood by sacrificing your boundary. If you rush to soothe, you teach them a rule. Sadness buys access. So you respond with a line that acknowledges emotion without kneeling to it. I understand. Still no. No debate, no apology, no soothing performance. Just a calm refusal that doesn't punish them, but also doesn't reward the tactic. Then you stop talking. The dominator uses pressure. Their voice sharpens. Their language turns moral. They make your refusal the crime. So you're really not going to help? Unbelievable. Wow. Selfish. Don't be like that. This is not a request anymore. It's a dominance test. And here's the trap. Most men try to win by explaining. They try to prove they're reasonable. They try to defend their character. That defense is what the dominator wants. Because if you're defending, you're under them. If you're defending, they've dragged you into their court. You don't debate a dominator. You correct the tone. Don't speak to me like that. Simple, clean, no heat. and then silence. Because when a dominator loses control of you, they will try to provoke emotion. Emotion is the handle, calm is the lock. The negotiator uses reason. They sound polite, they sound mature, they want your logic because logic creates openings. Just explain. Be reasonable. Why not? Let's talk about it. Sometimes a conversation is healthy, but when your no is being challenged, why becomes a tool. The moment you give reasons, they start solving them. They start bargaining. They start mining your weak points. Tiredness, fear of conflict, need for approval, need to be understood. So you cut the wire. I'm not discussing my reasons. That sentence does something most men are afraid to do. It refuses to justify existence. Then you stop. No extra sentences. No softening. No, I'm sorry you feel that way. No over-explaining to look fair. Because fairness is not the goal in a pushback moment. Clarity is. Now notice what this map does for you. It removes surprise. Instead of feeling attacked, you start reading patterns. You stop thinking, what do I say to make this go well? And you start thinking, which category is this? And what is the protocol response? One line, then silence. And here's the brutal truth that will protect you. Your boundaries are only real if they cost people something. The moment you start enforcing unavailability, someone will lose a convenience they were used to. Some will adapt, some will resent you, some will escalate. That escalation is information, not a crisis, not an emergency, information, because now you know who benefited from you being easy to move. But there's one more piece most men skip. They learn the lines, they learn the frame, they even learn the silence. And then they fail anyway because they don't enforce consequences. That's chapter 6. A boundary without a consequence is not a boundary. It's a suggestion. Most men learn to say no, but they say it like they hope the other person will accept it. And when the other person doesn't, they keep explaining. They keep negotiating. They keep absorbing pressure until they eventually fold just to end the tension. That is not kindness. That is training. Because every time you let someone push past your no, you teach them a rule. Persistence wins. And once people learn that rule, they stop listening to your words. They only wait for your fatigue. Your no becomes a speed bump they drive over until you collapse into compliance. So, the unavailable protocol installs one law that makes you credible. Pressure reduces access. Not sometimes. Always. The consequence is not dramatic. It's not angry. It's not a speech about respect. Consequences are quiet. They feel like policy. Shorter replies. Slower replies. Less warmth. Less availability. And if the pushing continues, you end the interaction. Here's the sentence that turns a boundary into a wall. If you keep pushing, I'm ending this conversation. Say it once, calm, like you're stating the weather, not as a threat. As a procedure, this matters because men sabotage consequences with emotion. They warn 10 times, then enforce once, then feel guilty and overcorrect. That inconsistency tells people your boundary is negotiable. It tells them to keep trying. So the rule is rigid. One warning, one enforcement. If they push again after the warning, you end it. You stop replying, you leave the room, you hang up, you step away and return only when the tone is respectful. This is the part that exposes conditioning, because the old version of you believes ending a conversation is rude. That belief exists to keep you trapped inside other people's discomfort. A conversation is not a prison. A phone call is not a contract. A guilt trip is not an emergency. You don't owe participation in pressure. And when you enforce, you do it immediately. Immediate consequences look like law. Delayed consequences look like mood swings. If you say, don't push me, and then you keep talking for 20 minutes while they push you, you just announced that your warning is theater. You made your own words cheap. The protocol is not theater. It is behavior. Now understand what you're actually doing here. You are not punishing them. You are protecting your standards from erosion. People will claim consequences are harsh because they want access without cost. They want your time to be a public resource. They want your boundaries to be guidelines. You are changing the terms. And yes, when you change the terms, some people will react badly. Good people adjust. They feel the new structure and they respect it. They ask differently. They stop leaning. But control seekers escalate. They act offended. They smear you to others. They make your boundaries sound like arrogance. They try to recruit witnesses so you feel social pressure to fold. This is where you stay surgical. Do not defend yourself to the crowd. Do not explain your reasons to third parties. Do not perform innocence. You repeat a single line and you exit. I'm not available for that, because when you over-explain, you invite a trial, and trials are where your standards get negotiated by people who never had authority over them. The consequence does something deeper than protecting your time. It reveals who in your life required you to be flexible in order to keep you useful. That is the true function of enforcement. It exposes dependency, entitlement, and hidden contempt. And once you see that clearly, you're ready for the final shift. Because saying no in the moment is good. But living in a way that makes pressure fail before it even arrives, that's the unavailable lifestyle. That's chapter 7. Most men try to say no with willpower. They wait until they're overworked, resentful, and cornered. Then they finally refuse. Not cleanly, not calmly. They snap, they explain, they apologize. Then they overcorrect with a yes to make up for it. That cycle doesn't require more courage. It requires rules. Because the moment you decide in the heat of a request, you are deciding inside someone else's frame, their urgency, their disappointment, their tone, their pressure. And guilt is strongest when your decision is made in real time under social tension. So, the unavailable lifestyle does something ruthless and effective. It decides your access terms before anyone asks. Not because you're cold, because you're done living like a public utility. Here are the 3 defaults that make you unmanageable. Default 1, response windows. You don't reply all day. You reply in blocks, morning, afternoon, evening. Your phone stops being a leash and becomes a tool again. This one change rewires the power dynamic. When people know you respond instantly, they start treating you like a button. Press, receive, press, receive. When people know you respond on schedule, they adjust. They become clearer. They stop using emergency language for convenience. And if something is truly urgent, it survives a response window. Real urgency has clarity. Fake urgency has impatience. Default 2, decision delay. You do not commit on the spot. Ever. Even 5 minutes breaks the guilt reflex. Even one breath can stop the old program from signing your life away. Your line is policy. I'll confirm after I check. Notice what that does. It doesn't argue. It doesn't apologize. It doesn't invite persuasion. It buys time. And time is where your standards come back online. Because the version of you that says yes too fast is not generous. He's afraid. He's trying to avoid tension. He's buying approval with access. Delay ends that economy. Default 3, your favor policy. You decide what you say yes to before the request arrives. Because if you don't, other people will decide for you. Pick one rule that protects your life. If it costs my sleep, peace, or progress, it's a no. That rule is not dramatic. It's reality. Most men aren't destroyed by enemies. They're destroyed by friendly extraction. The endless, small requests that shave their goals down to nothing. One favor, one call, one last-minute plan, one more weekend helping out. Then they look up and realize their standards were traded away in tiny, forgettable transactions. Now, the final weapon that seals this lifestyle is not a refusal. It's a timestamp, because ambiguity is where pressure lives. When you say, "I'll get back to you later," you create a vacuum, and vacuums get filled with follow-ups, guilt, impatience, and escalating tone. So you replace ambiguity with a hard edge. "I'll get back to you at 6. Not soon. Not later. 6. Defined time kills manipulation. It removes the other person's ability to hover over you. It removes their ability to keep the request alive in your nervous system. And when you live this way, something inevitable happens. Good people adjust. They respect the structure because it feels stable. Control seekers escalate. They punish you for changing the rules. They'll go quiet. They'll get cold. They'll make comments. They'll test you with small provocations. This is the final exam. Because the moment you become unavailable, some people will try to make unavailability feel dangerous. They will attempt to teach you that boundaries have a social cost. Let them try. You don't argue. You don't chase warmth. You don't negotiate your spine for peace. You return to the core line, delivered like a law. I'm not available. Then you stop. And if they keep testing, you reduce access further. Because pressure is not a request. It is disrespect with a smile. This is the unavailable lifestyle. Not a mood. Not a phase. Not a performance. A system where your attention is protected, your yes is rare, your no is calm, and your time is no longer a communal resource. When you live like this, the guilt fades for one reason. You finally stop treating other people's expectations as authority. And once that happens, you become the kind of man who can't be recruited, can't be rushed, and can't be managed. Because your life has terms, and you enforce them. Good. Now you understand what most men never name. You weren't tired because you were doing too much. You were tired because you were available to everyone except yourself. You learned what guilt actually is. Not truth, not morality, not evidence. A reflex installed to keep you useful, compliant, and easy to move. You learned how to refuse without bleeding explanations, how to delay before you decide, how to shut down pushback without drama, how to make pressure cost access, how to live with rules so you stop negotiating your life in the moment. Now comes the only part that matters, enforcement. Because the world doesn't respect what you intend, it respects what you repeat. The first week you use this, you will feel the old program fight back. You'll feel the urge to soften. You'll feel the temptation to over-explain. You'll feel the silence and want to fill it. Don't say the line once, then stop, and watch what happens. Good people will adjust. They will respect the new structure because it's clear. Control seekers will escalate because your availability was their advantage. Let them reveal themselves. You're not here to be convenient. You're here to be in command of your time, your attention, and your life. If you're done being reachable, subscribe. If you're ready to become expensive to pressure, like the video. This isn't entertainment, it's initiation. Act accordingly.